Welcome to This Week in Nerd News. This is TWINN number 26, and this week we do have 5 very important stories for us to pay attention to. And in this first one, we talk about a CLOP ransomware group that law enforcement had already contained and arrested 6 of its members, and somehow the data is now in the hands of additional members of that group, and so it's really hard to shut down cyber criminals of this size and of this nature. And so now they're launching more of their stolen data onto the dark web, and so it turns out that CLOP isn't going away after all, at least not yet. In this next story, we are finding out that major groups like CISA are saying, you know what, there is a simple mechanism in terms of idea. The simple mechanism of protecting your Orion software hosts is to prevent them from having outbound internet access. And that's exactly what we've been saying for many years. We're not making this a big I told you so moment. Okay, maybe we are. But the reality is that a lot of resources that are compromised, at any point, they do need that outbound access. And so this same suggestion that's applied here should be applied elsewhere to mitigate other attacks as well. And in this next story, we have Ars Technica covering the Dell PCs that have a BIOS Connect feature that was designed to make BIOS updates easy. Well, it turns out that that actually has a significant flaw. And so you definitely want to BIOS disconnect and prevent getting any takeovers occurring using that tool. Now, what's interesting that Dark Reading reports here is that in Q1, malware that was shared using public tools of sharing ecosystems, 74% of those pieces of malware were not detectable via signature-based tools. So the vast majority of tools that live on our computers that are looking for a specific behavior pattern are the ones that are using signature-based tools. When you have nearly 3/4 of them not being able to detect new malware, it tells you something, and that is that defense really needs to be in depth. We need to have layers, and we can't rely just on endpoint security in order to detect malware. That's the lesson in this. And we have another story here, this final one, about Western Digital MyBook that utilized a cloud service that most people sign up for, and in doing so, made them vulnerable. This is very similar to the QNAP story from a few months ago, where QNAP allowed remote access that was vulnerable, where attackers could easily identify them using a public internet scan. Say, I wonder how many QNAPs are out there. And well, my book from Western Digital was very similar. So if you have one of these and you haven't disconnected it yet, you definitely want to disconnect now. And finally, did you know that there are ways to outsource any internet browsing habits if your research style needs to have a more permissive internet access policy? Using Shadow Cloud, that's one of them. Shadow Tech is a PC in the cloud. These guys are a company out of France that have continued to grow over the last number of years and offer that now in a number of states as well. And there's a Silo browser, which is from Authenticate, the original founder of, some of you may remember, Postini, that was then sold to Google and became Gmail's anti-spam filter. The same founder created Authenticate, and Silo browser allows you to browse in the web and streams the content to you. But really the browsing is happening on someone else's computer. And so it's a great way to have a safe way to access potentially malicious content, because your computer that would be infected would not be yours. It would be the Authenticate one in the cloud. Anyway, that's it for today. See you next week. Bye for now.